Hi everyone, and welcome back to Mom on Mom.
I'm Brianne,
And I'm Jennifer.
and today we are going to be talking about kids who are smart but struggle in school.
That is a tricky position to be in, you guys. And often it is greatly misunderstood. As soon as a kid's grades start slipping in school or something like that, we immediately think something's going on, they need extra help, and sometimes that is just not the case. So we are excited to talk about this today. So as you guys know, Mom on Mom is a show where Brianne and I, two moms, talk with other moms that we know in our extended community about topics that affect us, which pretty much means we can talk about anything.
Basically.
Yeah, let's give it a try.
All right.
Hi everyone, this is Mom on Mom, and today we are with our good friend Carrie, who has worked with us for many years as an actor, but there is so much more to Carrie than that. Welcome, Carrie. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Carrie, obviously. I work in the legal field. I'm a legal assistant and a bookkeeper at a small firm. I have two kids, a daughter who is almost 30 and a son who is almost 26.
No way.
I've been married 30 years, yep, this month. Yeah.
Congratulations.
I know, right?
All around.
Right. And I also write. I have short stories out. I'm writing a novel. I'm writing several novels. And I write and film for you guys and stuff, so yeah.
And that is, I think, very indicative of being a mom, you guys. We're all writing several novels.
Yeah.
I mean, then
You might call them living novels.
you might. Oh, I see how you took that. Yes, we have a novel named Maxwell and a novel titled Faith. And actually, those could kind of work.
Sometimes they seem to take on a life of their own.
Well, those characters.
I'm telling you, the
You know?
characters, it's like,
They
did I
decide
say-
what's happening.
right? Did I say you
Yeah.
would do this? Because I'm pretty sure that was not in my plans.
So today's topic, and we do tend to let our mom guests pick the topic, but our topic that Carrie and I talked a little bit about was, and we struggled with, like, how do we say this? How do we present it? How do we make it into a title? Much like those novels we're all writing, it's hard to put it into a neat little category.
Yes.
But basically what we're talking about is when you have a kiddo, especially a gifted kiddo, who suddenly is just struggling in school. Though I should say, sometimes it's not suddenly.
Right.
Sometimes it's their whole lives. They have struggled in school, but you're like, this kid is blowing through tests, is devouring knowledge in every other arena. So this is a pretty major kind of heavy-hitting topic because I think a lot of kids get labeled as remedial students, and we have to combat this. As parents, we have to figure out what's really going on. But before we go there, I have my icebreaker question.
Oh, good Lord.
I haven't seen, so I'm a little terrified.
It's always ridiculous.
Oh, good. I can do ridiculous. I live ridiculous.
We've talked about a lot of things.
Mm.
Some of these icebreakers, people might say that should be a full topic, but I don't care. So today's icebreaker that I pose to you beautiful moms is body piercing for moms. Do we care? Should we care? Body piercing.
I'm feeling called out.
Sometimes the icebreakers will do that. For kids, at what age? And really what we're talking about here is body decoration. So if we want to veer into tattoos for moms, tattoos for kids, at what age? Now I know here in Washington it's 18.
Yep. you
And
can.
isn't it 18 for everything, piercing and
Yeah.
like a
No.
kid can go for piercings with a parent.
A kid can go for piercings with a parent, in their ears at least. I don't know
Yeah, I
about any
believe
other
with-
body part.
I believe with bodies, it's either 18 or it's like 16, but with your parent.
Right.
I think that's what it is. I know that there's a lot of people who know how to pierce who will do it kind of on the side, like not in their establishment, but you know, it's a friend of a friend's kid, you know, and they want a belly button ring, and their mom's like, whatever, you got straight A's.
Yeah.
You're a good kid. You want your belly button pierced? Go for it. But I want to say, and I don't know because we don't have kids who have ever asked for piercings.
I feel very
Other
lucky
than when
that I
Faith was
have
like
never been faced
8
with
and
this,
just
yes.
wanted her ears pierced.
Yeah.
I want to say it's 16 for body piercings, but tattoos are still you have to be 18.
Yeah, tattoos are 18
Yeah.
period. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what do you guys
So-
think? I mean,
Okay, so my feeling is-
legalities aside.
I'm just gonna step in as the person who is tattooed and pierced. Okay. Hi. My feeling has always been a mom is a mom. You're a mom regardless of what you look like. You're not a mom because you're wearing a muumuu and you got your hair in a bun and you're going into your minivan to pick your kids up from soccer. Or not a muumuu, maybe yoga pants. I don't know. You know, whatever kind of mom you are. But I feel like a mom is a mom. You're a mom because you have a child.
Right,
Whether that child is 2 or almost 30,
right.
Yeah.
you have a kid. Now that having been said, sometimes I am very self-conscious of the fact that I am tattooed and pierced when I'm with my kids, particularly like going to doctor's appointments and like things where it's more of a professional setting. I do think
More
about
in the
that, like
corporate-
how do I look? And sometimes I will try to dress to kind of compensate for that, but that's my own inner issue. But you know, it's like I also have like half of my head shaved. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's,
Which is, I mean, you know, the way we wear our hair is certainly also
Yeah,
part of it.
but
in this
I'm also
conversation.
just like, who cares what I look like? I'm a mom. I'm
Right,
taking care of my kid.
Right, have I sheltered and clothed and fed
Yeah.
and nurtured my
Have
child?
you kept the tiny
Yeah.
humans alive?
Yes.
Yes.
You're
don't
doing a
scar
good
them for
job.
life.
That's right.
Scar them for life in any way that is irreparable.
If we've,
Right,
if
you
we've
know.
only done better than our moms, I feel like we've made a good step.
Or at least as good as our mom.
Or as good,
you know,
yeah.
Depending on
Yeah.
how well you
Depending
were
on the
brought
mom.
up, but
Yeah,
yeah.
no pressure on Faith or anything, but I'd
Yeah.
like her to do like one step better than me. You know, I just want.
That's how I feel. I feel like
evolution
it's
of
at
moms.
every
I think
level.
that's- And I think that's
Yeah.
a parent in and of itself.
Yes.
is
Mhm.
My kids should become better than I am to make this world
Mhm.
better than it is now.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
So
Yeah.
let's go back to what you said there, Brianne. That's
Yeah.
an interesting thing. And no, I was absolutely not trying to call you out, but in the last couple of weeks, I've seen a lot of other videos, not talk shows, not people really talking about it, but moms vlogging, sharing about my kid wants X. And it was even so much, as you know how I feel about this, my kiddo wants to dye their hair a color. There are so many dyes on the market right now that you don't have to bleach first, even if you have dark hair. And I'm just kind of like, so?
So what?
It's
Well,
temporary.
okay, so.
But so when I say
Body
body
modification.
decoration, body
Yeah.
modification, even the stuff that isn't permanent, because this is a very kind of polarizing topic. And I
Yeah.
love how you said, hey, my kid's getting great grades, she's a great kid, if she wants a belly button piercing, fine.
And I think
Whereas
that's a
some
lot about,
moms-
that's how I was brought up,
Yeah.
is you can basically, you know, as long as like your privates aren't hanging out,
Yeah.
Right.
dress kind of how you want, dye your hair if you want,
Mhm.
have, at that point it was just ear piercings, but that was actually because I was doing extracurriculars where I wasn't allowed to have any other piercings. But you know, do what you want, you're,
Right.
you know, you're not getting into trouble. You're getting good grades. Like that, those were the rules at my house. Like I was allowed to dye my hair, whatever, so I would dye it red, not a natural red, but I mean something that
like fire
Technically.
engine red.
technically falls into it. You know, it wasn't this.
Wasn't blue.
And you know, kind of just do what I wanted in terms of like my own presentation.
Yeah.
Just because I was a good kid and I was getting good grades and not getting into trouble. And,
So is that the realm where you guys both kind of see it? It's kind of like
Yeah,
if the
I
kiddo is on a good path.
and my feeling really is like I don't think the 18-year-olds should get tattoos. I'm really glad that I didn't get a tattoo when I was 18. I don't think because it's like, you shouldn't do that, it's permanent. Well, yeah, it's permanent. You're gonna go, ha, I got that dumb thing when I was 18. That's fine, but I also, like, I saw all my friends turn 18 and get tattoos, and I was just like, I wonder how they feel about that now.
Right.
You know, did you really want the little Libra, you know,
That my daughter has on her.
on your ankle? Yeah. Exactly. You know, and I'm like, if you do, you do. I mean, you know, I know that I had ideas about tattoos when I was that age. I wasn't like super into it, so I was kind of like, whatever, I'd rather go and buy clothes than spend, you know, my money, because I feel like that's when you have the most money, is when you're in that like 16 to 18.
Right?
You don't have bills. You can just like you have a job, you make money, you pay for your cell phone, and then you have all this money.
Right? Yeah.
But I saw all my friends get tattoos, and I was just like, oh, those are great. And like thinking back now, like I wouldn't have wanted to get the tattoos that I had thought about. Like I wouldn't still want them on my body.
I wouldn't have them like today.
But in terms of like hair color, it can be permanent. Hair grows, and that's always my feeling. I mean,
Hair-
sometimes
that's the biggest
we're out in
problem
the
you
world. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't personally know any parents who have kids with dyed hair, but we're out in the world, even here in rural America, and I see like 5-year-olds with colored hair.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if that makes them happy, who cares?
That's my kids.
You know, people say, oh, it damages their hair, and I'm like,
Which is gonna grow out.
it
and
grows
they're
out
gonna
and you
cut
can
it
cut it off. To
Yeah.
me, it's just like a haircut. If your little girl wants a super short buzzed head,
Okay,
okay.
Yeah.
If your boy wants to grow it out,
okay.
okay. If you want to do a mohawk, I mean, I've seen like 6-year-olds with mohawks, and I'm like,
Yep.
if that makes them feel happy and empowered, I'm like, well,
Yeah.
piercings too, not really permanent.
Yeah.
You
they're
take
not.
it out, it closes up.
Yeah. Yeah. My
You
rule growing up was 16 to have your ears pierced. So when I was 13,
Oh,
I created this whole thing to ask my dad if I could get my ears pierced. Like I had the pros and the cons, and I had this whole thing, and I went to ask him, and he's like, "Sure, I don't care." I'm like,
So I went, like, he doesn't have a 13-year-old church. Whoa, Dad. You just want to think about it a little bit?
I had this whole thing prepared, and he goes, "Well, then I'll say no." I'm like, "No, you already said yes." He's like, "Well, you want to present your case, present your case." So,
Oh my gosh.
that's fantastic.
yeah, but I mean, so, and when I was little, I went and got my ears pierced at 13, and nobody was with me. I went to the mall and
Yeah.
it wasn't a big deal.
And
And then when I was
once you're
16,
a teenager, they're kind of like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll put a hole in your head.
and then
That's
16,
cool.
16, I had the second one done,
Yeah.
and then my dad was like, "Why didn't you ask?" Well, I was 16, so. So.
I'm grown, can't you tell?
I'm totally a grown up.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So yeah, when Jess and I talked about it with our kids, we decided, you know, because I know a lot of people get their kids ears pierced, their little girls' ears pierced when they're babies.
I was 3 months old when I got my first one.
Yeah, we
And
didn't-
while I would never do that to my kid because I feel like they don't have a choice in it,
yeah,
I can say it did not negatively impact me.
right, and that's with us.
Apparently,
we don't wanna
I
make
cried
that
for 30
decision.
seconds and then fell asleep.
Yeah, we didn't want to make that decision for a
Yeah.
daughter. So we said, okay, well, when they're, 10 and they ask about it, or we can ask them if they want it. So when Debbie
Yeah.
was 10, I was like, "Do you want your ears pierced?" And she was like, "No," and she still doesn't. She's almost 18 or almost 30, and she just still doesn't have her ears pierced.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
she
see,
has tattoos.
that's a huge
But she
reason
has
why.
tattoos.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a huge reason why I'm in favor of letting them decide.
Mhm.
Because I'm like, some people just don't necessarily.
right.
You know, like I get the other point, like where my mom was coming from. Which is like, do it when they don't remember.
Right.
Which is, I feel like, some parents who are very pro-circumcision, they'll do the same thing. They're like, do it when they don't remember.
Yep. Not when they have to make that decision and it becomes.
Which is a whole nother topic. It's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole other
But
body.
I get that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, it's not just like a societal standard. If you're a girl, you must have pierced ears.
Right.
So I like the waiting. You know, we waited with Faith.
Mhm.
She turned like 8 or 9
Mhm.
and just said, I think I'd like to have my ears pierced. And we're like, okay.
Mhm.
We went down to the mall, we got it done.
Mhm.
And she was a trooper. And just obviously it never feels good.
No.
But she was just like, that hurt, let's do the other one now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was good. I will say for anybody who's watching out here, just because I'm feeling like an expert right now.
Oh, I could have picked a different.
I know.
He's got some
So
feelings.
I will say for people out there, what I know now, which I didn't know when Faith was 8 or 9, whatever age it was, she got them pierced. That's kind of how much of a non-issue it was. I honestly don't remember. She was in that 8 to 10 range, I want to say. What I do know now is that if you're going to get your kids' ears pierced, bring them to a tattoo parlor
Yes.
where they will do it with a sterile, hollow needle. It will hurt way less. The guns that they use at Claire's, at Walmart, at the stands in the mall, which is where I got a lot of my piercings, where our kids got their piercings. There is no way to sterilize those guns.
Yeah.
So they're actually not safe. They also just punch a hole through the ear. It's like if you took a piece of paper and you took a pencil and you just pushed it through the paper, there's going to be all of these little pieces that broke. That's what happens when you use one of those guns. It's super gross, isn't it?
Ew.
Yeah.
And
And
when I had my date,
they can't sterilize those guns. So go on Yelp, go on Google, whatever, find a reputable tattoo parlor.
Yep, they usually do tattoos and piercings.
Yeah,
That's where I had my
and you'll
date.
find someone who will do it.
Oh,
Yes,
migraines.
the guys
Yes.
will have tattoos. Yes, there will probably be loud music, whatever.
You'll
That is
remember
the
it.
safest place to do it, and it will hurt so much less.
Yes.
When
date-
I got my eyebrow pierced, did not hurt. When I got my labret pierced, did not hurt because it's
my
with
date,
the sharpest
yeah, this
needle you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, this is cartilage.
Yeah.
And piercing your daith is a big deal,
Yeah.
and I felt pressure.
Yeah.
They didn't give me any numbness or anything.
Yeah,
It
no.
was pressure, and it was a very
It
weird
will be
sound
the
'cause it's
best
right
experience,
here.
and it's
Yeah.
the safest.
Absolutely, yep, I
Yeah.
highly recommend that.
Well, see,
Absolutely.
and once again, our icebreaker brings out all of this amazing information. And I will try next time, you guys. I will think
I'm
it
sorry,
through
I
a
have
little bit more.
feelings.
She has some feelings.
As a piercing, tattoos, and hair colored person. Oh, are your ears pierced?
I know, no one knows. All this bushy hair. So let's actually dive into our serious topic now. Not that this one,
Wasn't
wasn't.
serious.
Yeah. All right, so Carrie, what are your experiences with this particular, I don't want to call it an issue, that makes it sound like it's a bad thing, but it topic, and it's not an obstacle per se, but it's like something that as parents, we do have to keep our eyes open
Right.
for. So talk to us about your experience.
So
I was in the gifted program growing up. When I was in first grade, they wanted to bump, or when I was in kindergarten, during nap time, I did first grade math. I went to the first grade class and did math because I got bored. Twice they tried to skip me ahead of grade in school because I was academically that far ahead. And so I was very bored because we didn't skip ahead. So I was very, very bored in school because nothing held my attention because I was smarter than most of the kids in the class,
Yeah.
which sounds very elitist, but it's just that my brain worked that way, and so I knew things and I could understand things faster, and so I got very, very bored. My kids were the exact same way. They didn't have any like gifted programs at the schools where we went to. Well, they did. My sister is a teacher, and they had 3 grades in one classroom, and first, second, and third grade. And well, they had 2 classrooms with 4 teachers, and they had 35 or 36 kids in each classroom. But that's only a 16 to 1 teacher
Yeah, I mean, that's
ratio.
better than the schools that I went to.
Yeah, so that's a good ratio. It's just you've got 90, or you've got 75 kids in these 2 classrooms. But then each of the teachers were more specialized in specific subjects. So my sister taught math, and so all the kids that were at level A went to math with her at this time of day, and it didn't matter whether they were in first, second, or third grade. So
Okay.
So
Okay, I
they
see
did-
the benefit now.
right. So there's a real benefit to it, and it allowed the kids to have that, that wider age range of their peers. So that was kind of convenient. Both the kids were really smart. Both of them are really, really smart with math, and so math always came easy for them. They always, whipped through anything that they wanted to do. But they also have that attention, I can't sit still stuff. So, and both of them were on meds when they were in like elementary school, where they, just did the, yes. So,
Okay, puppy.
neither of them liked taking the medication, but it was interesting because Debbie could sit and twist and turn and flip and stand and whatever, but ask her a question about what she was learning about and she had an answer. So she could either engage her brain or her body. And so that was a really, really difficult thing. And so the medication helped her to not have to think about her body while she was engaging her brain, but she didn't like all of the other side effects and stuff that happened. And Zach, he was in like 1st or 2nd grade and was reading, not being read to, but reading the Harry Potter series, which is written in 6th, 7th grade.
Yeah.
Anytime he did any testing, he was always off the chart in both reading and math. He's a brilliant kid, both the kids, and neither of them liked to do homework. They always aced all their tests, but they didn't like to do any of the homework. They didn't like to do any other projects because this is stupid, and why do I have to do it when I already know how to do it?
Right, like they know internally they already have mastery, they don't want to have to,
Well, and it's like, here's the problem, show your work, and here's the answer. Why can't I just tell you
Oh,
that?
so when I was in 7th grade, I was also in like the gifted programs. I believe in my middle school they called it Challenge. Because it was like a little bit more engaging, a little bit faster paced. So my math class, I really struggled, not with my grades were fine, but with my teacher.
Yeah.
And I started out, I would do all the assignments and it would be totally fine. When we came into class every day, my teacher would have up on the projector, on the pull down thing, all the answers for last night's homework, and we'd check our answers, and then, people would ask questions about the different problems. I always was just like, okay, I did this right, cool. I got my first attention in that class because I was reading Lord of the Rings while he was going over, specifically, he had stopped talking about a question that a student had and had moved on to a completely different topic and was like bird walking way off into the nether. And I was really bored of that, and so I started reading my book. And apparently he had several times asked me to stop, and I hadn't heard him. Which, knowing me in the way that you know me, you probably know that was probably true. I didn't hear him.
Yeah, no, like didn't hear,
But my mom laughed and was just like, okay. That class in particular, I finally stopped doing my homework because I got so frustrated with all the show your work, do all this, blah, blah, blah. I stopped doing my homework, but then I would take the test and I'd get 100. And he got so frustrated with me that at the end of the year, he talked to me privately and he said, I need you to know, if you had done your homework, your test grades are incredible. You clearly understand everything we're doing, but you're not doing your homework. If you had done your homework, I would have skipped you past the next level of math.
So he was just like, I would have skipped you ahead. But you wouldn't complete your homework. And I'm just like, and that's so frustrating because it was like, it felt so tedious. It was the same way when I was, I don't even know, kindergarten, 1st grade, when we were doing phonics. Before I was in school, I was reading like Goosebumps and Babysitter's Club.
I read Charlotte's Web in kindergarten.
Yeah, I don't remember learning how to read. I just always remember reading. And so we would do like, the cat ran.
Well, the cat ran. It says it right there.
And I'm just like, I remember sitting there and just staring at it like,
But why did the cat?
flip
What was
page.
its motivation?
And we're spending like all this time on
That's
every
the cat's
page,
name.
and I'm just
What
like,
color is the cat?
oh my god.
Where is the cat headed? What
And I
realm
think
does the
that's
cat
so
rule?
hard for kids when it feels tedious, when you're like, I already know this.
Yes. And that's the whole, why
And what do you do with that?
When 2 + 2 = 4, I don't have to draw 2 apples and then draw 2 more apples and then shove them together to make 4. 2 and 2 is 4.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
The cat ran. Good. Where
If I can do the math in my head, let me just write the answer and say, did in my head.
Yeah.
Now, what I love about both Debbie's story and Brianne, your personal story, is that I think as parents we have to realize that what paying attention looks like is different child to child.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
what no, okay, and I mean, again, I don't like using the phrase devil's advocate. I just like to, put myself in someone else's shoes for a minute. It's like when a teacher says, I need you guys to show your work, and then
Yeah.
the argument is, I need to make sure you're coming to the conclusion in the right way, so that as we advance to higher, and yes, I'm going to agree with both of you, as we progress to the next level,
You understand the concept.
you
And I-
understand the concept, and you're using these same steps to properly, what are you
And she's-
doing?
I'm dog sitting right now, and I think I have the other dog's smell on me.
I see.
So she's being weird.
All right. So, I mean, I get the argument, but at the same time.
At the same time, I don't, and I think the reason why is because when I was in 7th grade, that same year, my mom gave me A Wrinkle in Time. And one of the major points that Meg has in that book is that her dad taught her other ways to do math,
Yeah.
and the teachers would get mad about it. And so I felt vindicated.
Yes.
Because I'm like, the teacher isn't always right.
Wrinkle in Time says it's okay.
And I was
That's
just
all
like,
you need
and
to
that
say.
was so frustrating to me because I'm like, I felt the same. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm getting to the solution just because either I don't do it the way that you do it or I do it in my head because it's so freaking easy.
Right?
I shouldn't have to go bloop, 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 this is long division. I can say, no,
Seven
this is actually
more
more.
3 times.
Yeah, this is a multiple of 25, so yeah, it's 225, but I know how many 25s went into there.
Right.
It's
There's 4 to
9.
100 and-
It's in my brain.
Right, there's 4 to 100, so twice as
But I don't want to
many.
actually have to write out the long division showing how that works.
But it's so pretty.
So is the story, and after that, thank you very much.
I'd rather read my book.
Yeah.
So as parents, I think we have to, one, know, we have to be able to read our children and know when are they engaged, when are they not engaged. When are they bored because, or at least, when are they saying they're bored because they're really not getting it and they're
Right.
afraid to tell us.
Right.
Yes.
Or, embarrassed or whatever it is.
Right,
Or when they're totally getting it, they're totally with, they're kind of beyond it already.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I finished this book, can I have the next?
I almost want to also throw into the conversation as we are talking about knowing our kids, academically and finding what works for them, that idea of not shaming our kids because they could be reading, the latest literary bestseller,
Right,
but they could be absolutely not getting multiplication.
right.
Yeah.
Or they could be excelling and programming, their first C++ games, but they can't do phonics to save their lives.
Right.
Is that is not a failing
Right,
if a
right.
child
Yeah.
needs help in one area.
And I think one thing, and this is gonna end up swinging back to the fact that Jennifer and I homeschool, is that what I have found is that, especially in public school, there is this timeline,
Mhm.
and they want kids to hit things on their timeline.
Right.
And it seems to matter less and less if the kid wants to go further than the timeline, or if the kid is struggling and can't quite make the timeline.
Yeah.
We decide kids have to read by this age, do multiplication by this age. They have to know US history by this age.
Right.
And I think that the school system, there is a failing in it
Mhm.
because some kids, and it could be the same kid in different arenas. You could have the same kid who needs to do the next grade, like you,
Right.
in math, or also in like reading is a little bit behind.
Right.
Are they behind? Are they behind because the school system says they are?
And that's exactly what it is.
And we had one of our kids who, I'm not calling anybody out, but one of our kids who really, really struggled with reading, but their comprehension was off the charts. They could understand
That's
things
different.
5 or 8 grade levels above,
Mhm.
but their actual reading,
Yep.
they just struggled and struggled so much that they began to hate it, and then that became a problem. And what I found, and what I really feel as a parent, because I do have a strong feeling about this, is that kids have their own timelines.
Yeah.
And they're gonna learn things how they're gonna learn things.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that you should just say, oh, well, they're not understanding now, so I'm just gonna let it go. You wanna keep working on things with them.
Yeah.
But not just go, oh, okay, well, you need to sit down and you need to
Pound this
break out, I don't know, Last of the Mohicans, or, you know, whatever, classic literature. Sit there and read it. No, if they're playing a video game that has a whole bunch of reading in it, if that's a way to get them to read,
Yeah.
if it's a graphic novel that has a lot of reading in it,
Yeah.
I'm all about flexibility and making it work for the kid, and if their timeline is different, that's okay.
Yeah, there's more than one way, it's more than one way to skin a cat. I mean, there's
Yeah.
more than one way
exactly.
to
There's
teach.
no way to skin a cat, you should
Right.
never skin a cat.
Right. There's more than one way to love a cat.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes they need to be in your lap, sometimes they need to be over.
Sometimes they want their own space or they'll bite you.
Right. And that's
Same
the
with
thing is-
kids, I mean.
Well, there's more than one way to raise a kid. There we go.
Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
also that, yeah.
And that's the thing is because Debbie, her comprehension was always there.
Mhm.
But if it started with an H and it had more than 5 letters in it, the word was hippopotamus. And I did not care if it made sense or not. Because it started with an H. And so it's
Yes, I ran into that with one of them the other day, and I just looked at them and I said, you need to sound it out, because there's no M in that letter that you just thought was this word.
yeah,
You need to look at it and not just guess what it is.
yeah.
And yes, it was a long name, it was the name of a city, so no, it's not a word they would have ever seen before,
Right.
but I'm like, you can't just guess a city that starts with S. That's our side of the country.
Seattle, so
It was Sacramento and Sarasota.
So
They
basically,
looked at Sarasota and said, Sacramento?
totally.
Thank you. Basically the same thing.
No!
The story
Absolutely not.
was not one of our children, it was me. I respect her trying to respect my
No, it wasn't.
Well, but that's the thing is just because you don't know how to do this doesn't mean that, or just because you don't know this way to do it, it's like kids with Legos. I mean, this one's a 1. If you put 2 of these together, that's a 2. Look, this one's a 2 because they go together. You can use
If you put two of the twos together, you get a 4.
right, and
Yeah,
that's teaching
yeah.
them math.
Mhm.
That's teaching them math while
Yeah.
playing and
Mhm.
and finding a way that's fun for the kids, that makes sense to the kids, that's
Mhm.
enjoyable for the kids.
Yeah.
Nowadays, video games are huge, and there's reading in them.
Yeah.
And people
Yeah,
think, oh, you're
major.
just out there, blah blah yada yada whatever.
I mean, I will say it depends on the game.
right,
But if you find like a good RPG game,
Mhm.
there's so much reading. You have to read to do anything.
So this is like a role-playing game is what Brianne's talking about, an RPG, and a lot of times there are not voice actors. The characters speak and there's all of this
Mhm.
story text that's given, but it's completely given as text on the screen. And this is
Which-
not
which,
talking down, it's
Which
very elaborate.
obviously you would need to find something age appropriate.
Of course,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, they have little text boxes.
Yeah, they have so much reading. You're constantly talking to people and making decisions and choosing what you say to them.
Undertale,
Yeah.
if we want an independent, and also
Yeah.
just, I mean, the moral challenges in that game, I think, are phenomenal.
Right. So, yeah, and the other thing that they do is they have things that you have to, you have to collect things along the way and you have to
Mhm.
get certain things, and so that teaches logic and timelines.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
all these different things are taught in video games. It's
Mhm.
not just play, but it's play to learn. And so,
Yeah. That
You know?
play to learn, yes.
and it's important that kids understand the concepts,
Mhm.
and however they understand the concepts, however you get that concept across to the kid,
Mhm.
that's the way to do it. And adults too. I mean,
Yeah.
we're the same way. There are things we don't know as adults. I'm almost
Yeah.
50 years old and there are things I don't know.
I-
And I'm okay with that.
I
Learning
think
every day.
Yeah.
learn a new thing or a new skill almost daily.
Yeah.
And I go on
Yeah.
Google or I go on YouTube
Right?
and I'm just like, how do I do this? This
Yeah.
must be a thing. Let me look it up.
I know, I always get idioms wrong, but you guys, what is the, well, the joking idiom is necessity is a mother, but I mean,
Oh, necessity is the mother of all invention.
yes, I kind of feel like as moms, don't we
Yeah.
have to keep learning?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's almost
Yeah.
like this, well, I mean, I know that there's the easy argument that we all talk about because it's not an argument. You know, we have to, what is Tinder? what is Twitter? What is Tumblr? I just chose 3 keywords.
Snapchat.
Right, what is
Yeah.
Snapchat?
What are these?
We
Yeah.
need to know, if our kids are using any of these things, we should know what
Oh
they
yeah,
are.
and that's a whole
Yeah.
nother
Oh,
episode.
it absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel in the same way, in terms of public school, I understand when parents are like, I am dealing with so much.
Mhm.
I need the schools to teach my kid, that's their job.
Right.
And unfortunately, no,
That's not their job.
ultimately, though I understand where we're coming from, and I'm not just trying to say this as a homeschool mom, like, do it all yourself, no,
No.
but I think we do.
No,
need to
there's lots
supplement.
of kids that flourish in public school.
My
Yes.
sister's kids were 4.0 students, great students, did magnificently, but they have a teacher for a mom. So, but there is that caveat.
Right,
But,
I almost want to say, like, how much is she actually teaching?
but no,
Yeah.
they were in charge of their homework. I mean, she
Okay.
set them down and gave them time and
Yeah.
Yeah.
made sure of it.
But then there's also kids that I feel like do end up dropping through.
Mhm.
Like I had, my brother was the same as me, like very gifted in all of the challenged and gifted classes. And he hit his high school years and that was kind of it. He had a lot of behavioral issues going on. He was really bored, which I think is where a lot of it came from.
Mm-hmm.
And he dropped out of school.
Yep.
And the same thing with my uncle. My uncle was the exact same way. He was incredibly intelligent and bored
My dad.
and dropped out of school.
My dad.
Yeah.
Barely finished 9th grade. Part of it was he lived in Nebraska, grew up on a farm, and
Yeah.
his dad died, so he had to help out on the farm. He built planes. He
Yeah.
was an engineer
Yeah.
and built planes and designed planes. So he's not stupid.
Intelligence looks different, not just in our kids.
Oh, no, it does.
But in adults.
I almost didn't graduate. I came in right under the wire.
Yeah,
Because
both
by
my
my
kids.
senior year, I was so incredibly bored of everything. And we had one of the things that I had not ever taken that was a requirement for graduation was a health class. And I had originally never taken it because it would, if I did ROTC, which I did for 3 out of my 4 years in high school, if I did it for the 4 years, you didn't have to take health. This major thing happened with that class. I ended up dropping out of it my senior year. We got new instructors. It was a big hot mess. But because I dropped out, I didn't get the credit. So I had to take that credit my senior
Right.
year. And that class was the stupidest,
Right?
boringest class I have ever taken. I didn't do any of the work. I didn't do any of the projects. And I had an F. And I was like a month from graduating. And I wouldn't have graduated without that half a credit of health.
Yeah.
And so I talked to the teacher
What can I do?
and apologized. And luckily, she was fantastic. She was phenomenal. She was like, all these things you haven't done, do them.
Yep.
Give them to me.
Both my kids were doing that.
And if you do them and you do them well,
And I did that.
I will pass you and you will graduate.
Okay, so you
And I
guys,
think I graduated like with a C.
You guys have given me incredible courage. So I love this because I think that it
And
is
actually,
so
to this
vital.
point, my parents have no idea that I almost didn't graduate.
But see,
Because I was terrified.
So I didn't read.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not slamming schools. I am not slamming schools in any way, shape, or form. But in the 1970s, the idea, there was a thing called open concept schools. They were public schools. And I just so happened to basically go to that type of school, alternative public schools, schools of the arts, open concept schools, my entire schooling. I didn't attend kindergarten, that's a whole different story, but 1st through 12th grade, it was all this kind of thing. I did not, there were no phonics. We did keywords. So you
Right,
would
it
look
was
at
the
a
route
word,
memorization,
route
right?
memorization of the
Yeah.
word, and if you could look at the word, let's say T-R-E-E, you got it on a card, and if every day you could read through your big binder ring of cards to your teacher, you would get to keep them. If you couldn't tell her what the word was, she would take it and rip it up. You didn't get it anymore. And you could add new words that you wanted to learn. Now, as an adult, now I know, oh my gosh. I mean, I've never learned, I learned more phonics as Brianne was teaching Faith phonics. So sound it out, Jennifer, that doesn't exist. There are no phonics in my
You
brain.
mean sound it out? That doesn't make sense. That's
Right.
That's like,
So
here's Greek, go ahead and read it out loud.
Yeah.
are we stunned that to this day, and actually I've had a talk with my parents about this, they love teasing me because my spelling is horrible. And I'm like, you think, guys?
Because I don't know how.
If your
letters
spelling
sound.
is horrible, that's a reflection on them, not on
I'm
you.
like,
I'm sorry.
in
I'm
schools that are
just like-
teaching route memorization. So anyway,
Yeah.
the reason I bring this up is that I did not read. I'm being passed grade to grade until I was 10.
At all.
That
At the
doesn't make any
end
sense.
a year after passing, and then they're like, well, yeah, she's just doing really, really well. End of 5th grade. 5th grade, you guys. No
Yeah.
reading. I turn into my teacher, and in that school, it was one teacher, you have them all day.
Well,
Okay.
that's the way.
Oh, yeah, most elementary schools
Most
are that
elementaries
way.
are that way.
Yeah.
I'm just,
I know you were in a strange school in the 70s, so it's
Exactly.
confusing,
Well,
but
I was in
Yeah.
strange school in the 70s, we had the same teacher.
Okay, all right, so,
Yeah.
so we have the same,
Yeah.
I feel for her, my face was, I felt for her, the same kids all day long. But
Yeah.
I turned in,
All of these journals. She goes, what is this? Now she's got to know I can't read, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah. And I go, oh, I wrote a novel. And I had, with my memorized words, here was, I can't read, but it's all my memorized words. So this is a 65,000 word fantasy novel about people going on adventures. And she's like, oh my gosh, I never knew.
you're gifted. Again, I'm not slamming this teacher, I'm just saying,
No, and
looking
you're
back
still
as
saying,
an adult.
I can't read.
Right, looking back as an
Which is
adult.
actually
there's
interesting
so
because
many-
it means that you can encode but not
Decode, right. So somebody should have
Yeah.
caught that, but anyway.
Yeah.
That's beside the point. My important point that I wanted to make here was that upon that discovery of the novel, they said, well, she needs to be in drum roll, the gifted program. Worst thing that
Yeah.
obviously ever happened to me. Because what was the
Yeah.
gifted program at this school? It was, these kids are so bright, let's give them a way to express, to explore physics, and let's have them do the egg drop where they create a contraption and then we throw it off the roof of the school.
Right.
And, they'll get to create, and let's.
And you're like, teach me to read.
Right, yeah, how hard is
Yeah.
7 rubber bands, a mouse trap, and a brick, and they have to move it over the gym, and I'm like, pick up the brick, walk it to the other side of the gym. I can wear the rubber bands. This is stupid.
Stick the pencils in my hair like that.
Yeah, exactly. You know what would be cool to do with these pencils? Learn to read. You know what it is? So, but the reason I bring this up is that Carrie, when we first started this episode today, you mentioned several times your teachers were saying to your parents, we need to skip her, we need to skip her, we need to skip her. And your parents, for whatever reason, were
Because
like,
I was tiny.
okay, we're like, no, right, keep her with her peers, or, no, we're not doing this. Being put into a gifted program, being skipped ahead is not always the answer.
No, and actually
Still, you have to stop and look at the whole child. Right.
Well, and you have to look at emotional maturity as well. What is their emotional age? Because I had a friend when I was growing up, whose little sister, who I ended up also being friends with, her little sister was skipped ahead. She skipped 5th grade. So she was always younger than all of her peers.
5th
And-
grade is where you learn to read.
Oh
It's
my
not
God.
a good grade to skip.
Not in the late 90s, early 2000s. Okay, let's just say. And I was in a whole different grade than her. But anyway, so she skipped from 4th to 6th, which, if any of us are thinking back on what 4th grade was like, and then what 6th grade is like,
Yeah.
and in the school district we were in, 6th grade was not elementary school, because I know that really varies depending on where you are regionally.
Yeah, it was for me.
It was for us,
yeah.
So 6th grade was like, that was the beginning of like basically junior high.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
wow.
you now have 6 classes a day. You now have all of these, you've got 6 different teachers getting you 6 different homework assignments. You've got all of your peers are now a year older than you,
Yeah.
a year more mature. And what I can tell you is that I don't think that was right for that kid. She ended up 17 and pregnant. And as soon as she was in high school, was always trying to be older and be more mature and do more things. She didn't get pregnant accidentally. She got pregnant because she and her boyfriend decided they wanted to have a kid.
Yeah.
And and I should say she gave birth at 17.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's so hard. I'm not saying that there aren't kids who can skip grades.
Right. There are.
I think there are, but I think it really depends on that emotional maturity. Is that the best thing for that kid.
Yeah.
You know, because I saw my friend turn into a completely different person, getting in like physical altercations with other girls in the halls,
Yeah.
like pulling hair out. I mean, like there were some girls like she could not walk by because they would get into a physical fight.
That's insane.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
but when you're always the youngest kid and you're always
Right.
the one being picked on,
Yeah,
and
Zach was always the youngest because his birthday's in August, so he
Mhm.
graduated at 17 and then 2
Right.
years
Yeah.
later turned 18. He
Right.
was always the youngest kid, and he was not socially phenomenal. You know, he struggled socially because
Yeah.
he is,
yeah, some
his
kids do.
Right.
his personality is, I will sit in my room by myself. If I want to talk to you, I will talk to you online, and that's
Yeah,
it.
he's an introvert. Yeah.
He's totally him.
Like an actual introvert.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's not
exactly.
that he can't socialize, and it's not that he doesn't get any enjoyment from socializing, but his friend pool is this big.
Yeah.
It's tiny,
Mm-hmm.
and it always has been tiny.
Mhm.
And he just socially, there's no way I would have let them move him ahead. in
Yeah.
anything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Even though academically he's always been off the chart. I mean, by
Right.
the time he was 4th grade, he was testing out of high school and all that
Using
academic stuff.
that video game analogy,
Life, especially our children's lives, especially when we're kind of at the controller, so to
Yes.
speak, of our children's lives, it's not about getting those in-game achievements. Oh, skip a grade? Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, gotta get them into
Well-
the gifted program? Heck yeah. Oh, look at these laurels I'm wearing as a parent. My kid skipped, you know,
Yeah.
grades, or my kid's in the gifted program.
And
Oh my gosh.
it's so difficult.
Because I feel like a lot of parents get stuck on this, like, okay, well, they have to do this so
Yeah.
that they can get into this school and then get this degree and then do this thing for their
Mhm.
life and then they'll be okay. And obviously wanting good things for your kids is never a bad thing.
yeah.
Right.
But I feel like sometimes that's much looked over, where if you think about in the long term,
Mhm.
if they took an AP history class or not,
No big deal.
Right.
does
Yeah.
it matter?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, my son spent 5 years out of school before he went back to college. Before he decided, okay,
Yeah.
I want to go to Japan and teach, I want to go to Japan. Let's figure out how I can do that. There's the JET program. I can learn, get a degree, travel to Japan, live in Japan, have a job in Japan,
Mhm.
and teach English. All I have to do is get a degree. Okay, well, I can get a degree in anything. What's something I can use as a degree so that if this whole teaching in Japan thing doesn't turn out,
Yeah.
I have something to fall back on? Computer engineering. Fine. What do I need to? I mean,
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
figured
and
it
I
out.
feel like
He-
a lot of that is
yeah.
because we expect these 18-year-olds, and
Yes.
I can say even for me, when I was in school, as soon as we hit 9th grade, they had us planning out and figuring out our whole professional life.
We were high school and college and masters
We
and
started,
whatever else and all
they,
the other things. And
they called it our portfolio.
yes.
So we would start working in 9th grade on our portfolio, which we had to, at the end of our senior year, present to our guidance counselor and our parents of all of our achievements and where we were gonna go and what our plan was and how to get there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're an 18-year-old kid. 18-year-old kids don't know anything.
No.
And expecting them to decide on their life course at 18
At
when they're
15.
when their brains
Right.
aren't developed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, starting at 15.
Starting at 15.
Their brains aren't developed, their bodies aren't fully developed. The more science that we're learning, the more that we're learning that the brain doesn't finish developing until you're about 30.
Right.
So me now, who just turned 30 last year, I'm like, okay, so now I can decide what I want to do with my
So now
life.
you're a grown up. Congratulations.
I'm a grown-up now.
You're with us now.
But I was expected at 15 to decide what I wanted to do.
Right.
Now,
Here's
what I fell back on was I'm going to be a writer.
yeah.
So, I'm kind of in that field. I've been doing
Hey,
some of that. But,
Well, I'm 50 and I just figured out that I want to be a writer. From
and I think
So-
the problem was because I
think they
was
learned
really
to read
smart
very
and I
well.
was really interested in a lot of things, I wanted to be so many things.
Right.
I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to be an Egyptologist. I wanted to be a photojournalist. I wanted to be a forensic anthropologist.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do all of those. I wanted to work with kids.
Yeah. No, I love it. Talk about
I was all over the place.
I want to do all the things.
gap.
And I still
Something like that.
absolutely love Egypt.
Yeah.
I have worked with animals. I was a dog groomer for several years, and now we have a menagerie
Just
at
kidding.
home, so I don't need to be a dog groomer to see dogs. We have 5 of them. I became a stepmom and got to raise now for 10 years 2 incredible kids. You know, it's like, it doesn't have to be,
Yeah. You don't have to know.
you don't know at 18 and it's okay to not know. And if you do know, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool, more power to you. You knew what you wanted to do.
No, but I love
Like by the time
story
you were
of-
10.
I love the story of your son taking 5 years off.
But yeah, no,
It's
I
not
think that's
gap year,
fantastic.
it's gap 5 years.
Right.
You know,
It's
like that's
take
okay.
5 years to grow up and live in the world
Yes.
as an adult.
He took 2 years and did nothing.
Yeah,
He played video games and watched YouTube for 2 years.
yeah.
We're like, and finally we said, okay, you need to be an adult, get a job.
Yeah.
Okay, within a week he had a job.
Yeah.
Not even kidding, within a week he had a job.
And I'm just gonna argue, I think some kids need that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Alright, so, yeah, I didn't wanna homeschool my kids because my kids were too smart. I mean, I just never felt like I would be adequate enough to school them.
I think there's a lot of parents that feel that way.
Yeah, and
That don't feel like they're, not that they're not smart enough, but just that they can't.
give them a full, well-rounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, now looking back, it's like there are so many other opportunities out there. I mean, homeschooling can be wonderful for kids who don't fit into the box.
And I feel like it's also changed a lot in the past like 10 or 15 years.
Oh, yeah,
Because now there's a lot of
co-ops,
in between. It's not necessarily a homeschool, but there's like online high school.
right.
There's online schools where like you don't necessarily have to be the teacher. You have to be there in case they have like questions. But the same that you would if they had homework.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, you know, homeschooling now, there's phenomenal things that you can do with homeschooling because you can get your schooling done in like 3 hours time instead of taking all day to
Right.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so narrowing the amount of time that they're focused on their work gives them a whole lot more free time to explore other things in life.
Yeah.
What they wanted, you know, what they want to be when they grow up.
To try things out. Let's try
Mhm.
this, let's try this, let's try this, you know.
Right, you're interested in this field, why don't you volunteer in a way in that field, see what you think about it.
Right, or,
Yeah.
okay, why don't we, you wanna know about Egypt and Egyptology.
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure out how we can put that together with your history.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you're
Mhm.
learning history for your school,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also getting information on something you're interested in. And I think that's the biggest problem that I had and my kids had was all the stuff they were learning in school was like, this is dumb because I don't care.
Right, I'm not
I'm not,
honestly interested.
I'm
in
I've
not
now
ever
learned
going
about
to
the
use-
Industrial Revolution 12 times and I'm over it.
I know,
Mhm.
and I'm done.
Yeah.
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 So those are the advantages to homeschooling.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
there are
true.
huge advantages to
Mhm.
homeschooling.
Mhm.
And especially now, I mean, you look
Mhm.
25 years ago when Debbie was going into school and homeschooling was like.
You had to create everything. I feel
Yeah,
like
you
had to
came
create
up, you had to
everything
come up
from
with your own
scratch.
curriculum.
Yeah, I don't know that they even had books. I mean, I went with my sister to.
There was stigma, and there was a
Oh,
lot of
and there was a lot of stigma because when I was in high school, we had a gal that came back to public schools
Mm-hmm.
and had been homeschooled,
Mm-hmm.
and the torment that poor girl went through.
Yeah.
Because she didn't know the lingo of teenagers,
Right.
Because she wasn't
And the
around it.
social cues of public school teenagers.
Right, and
Yeah.
so she was socially dumb.
Right.
You know, she
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
didn't know. And it wasn't her fault, and it wasn't
No.
her parents' fault, it's just the way that homeschool was 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Was, 35 and 40 years ago, homeschool was like, no.
And now
There's all of these social meetup groups, and Carrie, you're absolutely right in that when you do homeschool and it is tailored to your child, you do have this extra time. You do get done much sooner than a public school day,
Right.
and that a lot of that extra time, it is then on you as a parent to find social activities for your child so that they are with their peers and they do get that socialization, because obviously that's the first thing that everyone always throws up their hands with. Oh, your kids won't be socialized. And I'm like, if my children were any more social, they
It
would
could be a problem.
There would be a problem.
Well, and the other thing that I find is it depends on what you're going for. Because like with Faith, with our daughter, she finds other girls her age to be really annoying.
Yeah.
Like that kind of, and I feel like it's a lot of those social cues that are taught in high school. You know, the little like gossipy, clicky, kind of like, you know, and she just finds it, like she can sit and talk with an adult, like no one's business.
Yeah.
But like she has no interest in other 16 or 17-year-old girls. She's just like, I can't. What is it? And it's like in that way, I feel like because she was homeschooled, she is more mature.
Absolutely.
And that's where she is socially. And I'm
And
like,
I've known you guys for
okay.
like 4 years, and I agree. She's
Yeah.
way more mature
yeah.
than any 16-year-old girl I
And that's not to say
ever
that that's
known.
going to be every kid.
No.
You know, because I feel like our son Max, I feel like he's been just kind of right on he is neurodivergent, but you know, socially he's been just kind of right at that level at every point. But I feel like Faith did get to a point where she was just like, I would much rather talk to adults. And I get that because when I was a kid, I always had friends that were older. I was friends with their parents.
Yeah.
You know, and some kids are like
I
that,
think
and I think that that's okay.
It does, it's so funny that like it all comes back. I feel like in some ways, all of these episodes come back to the same thing. And that is each of our children, it's not cookie cutter. Even if we've had, you know, several kiddos and one or two of them, you know, wow, the public school worked great. It was effortless.
I'm number 6 of 7.
Okay, see, so it's like there could be a child in a family that, yes, everything the way it's laid out traditionally works great.
Yes, and that's my sister. She do.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think as parents, I'm sorry, I know I'm talking with my hands, it's bothering you. As parents, we have to go, okay, that's cool. The traditional path is cool. For this kiddo, praise, great. Oh, okay, for this kiddo, traditional cookie cutter ways, it's not cookie cutter in a bad way, is not working.
And I would only
Praise,
argue
this is the way we're gonna go.
that if you feel that it's that really important thing for your kid to keep that timeline, which me as a parent, I disagree with. But that's okay, because as we've talked about many times, there is not a handbook, there is not one right way to do it. My thing would just be, if you want to keep that timeline of like, we read by X, we do math by X, we go into these classes, we do these extracurriculars, we get into this college, that, you know, all American, homegrown, all the way up through their master's thing. When they struggle, it is on you to figure out a way to get them through it, following the timeline that you are wanting.
Right. Well,
And if that means that
struggling.
they need something to do with their body while their brain is engaged, let them do that. Don't make them sit still and do their school. If they are one of those kids who has excess energy, get them one of those balls that they can sit and bounce on while they're doing school, and let them
fidget spinners,
or the fidget spinners, or that,
little
you know.
tactile things. We had a kid in one of my
Yeah.
daughter's classes who had the little cush balls, you know, the little
Yeah.
spiky thingies that
Yeah.
weren't really spiky, they were soft, and always had that in their pocket and just fiddled with it because it's a tactile thing for them to do with their body
Right.
while their brain was functioning.
And also understand that different people learn in different ways. Some people are audio learners. Some people need to see it written down. Some people need to see it done.
Some people need to see it done, then do it with you watching, and then they'll get it. I mean,
Yeah, like even me, like where I was in honors classes, I was in the junior honor society, you know, despite the health issue, I did graduate with a very good GPA. I don't do audio processing very well. So if someone tries to give me like audio directions and say, okay, do this and then do this, I'm like,
yeah.
you need to either physically show me or write it down. If you write it down, that will be best.
Give me a list of the directions
Yeah.
on how to do that.
Exactly, and
everyone's
understanding
an
that
author, yeah.
if you need them to do that timeline, then you need to be super engaged and super involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No,
Well, and I
yeah.
think you need to be that way whether you want them to hit the
Regardless,
mark or not.
yes.
Yes.
But if you're like, okay, go to school, go do the good things, get good grades, we expect a lot out of you,
Yeah.
you need to be really engaged with that.
Yeah.
And not be like, why did you get in the C in this? Okay, well, were you doing their homework with them?
Did you sit
Did
down
you
with
talk to
them?
them about it?
Did you have a conversation
Yes.
about
Yeah.
what was the favorite part of each class you did today? Or, you know, figure a
And
way
when-
that'll work.
And when you're sitting down at dinner, you go, well, what did you learn today? And they go, nothing.
Yeah,
More questions. Find a way to engage them. Get them to talk about what they're doing.
And actually,
Because there was no day that any kid ever went to school and learned nothing or did nothing and had no
right,
experience.
what did you do today? Nothing, it was boring.
I think that's a perfect topic to kind of like tie the episode together on, actually, is that, because it is, we hear about that a lot. I mean, it's even a trope in movies and
Right.
television.
Oh, yeah.
Where the kid just says nothing. I would say, I'm even gonna go out on a limb a little bit here, and I would say, if your child is like, they don't wanna talk about their day, then I say something's wrong. Because if they're not engaged,
Yeah.
if there's not just even one thing in one class that is sparking that child's interest, then what can you do outside of school that is
Yeah.
gonna give them that excitement that they wanna share with you?
And I feel like,
Or are you not a good listener?
Right.
Is
What did
that
you do
really-
today? Paper.
right, yes.
Paper.
Or especially
Yeah.
like, I know, I have some friends that are moms where if it's not something that they're interested, they'll just say, don't talk to me about that.
Okay, and so then
And
when the
then
child
I'm just
distance
like,
themselves from
right.
you, or
Misbehaves, which is a direct emotional response to
If
being
they-
ignored or
If they want to
neglected.
talk to you for an hour about what they learned in physics that day,
Right,
and you never took physics and you have no idea what they're talking about,
yeah,
Smile and nod.
yeah, I think she's talking about me again.
smile and nod, and then you
No,
know
that
what?
was reading.
That night after they've gone to bed,
You better start teaching yourself physics because that's what your kid's into.
That's
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
If what they're into is skateboarding, you need to learn everything about skateboarding
You know what
ever.
a goofy
And I don't care if you're not
Right,
interested
exactly.
in it. You need to learn about it and be able to have a
And you
conversation
should
with
want
them.
to.
You
You
should.
should want to.
Yeah.
Because that's their passion.
I do kind of love that. The child goes to sleep and then you do all this research and then casually over breakfast you're like, so gravity wells.
Right?
And then kids like,
What
Exactly.
What do you
Oh my
think
God,
about that
you
picture? What do you think about that picture of the black hole they finally got?
Yeah.
It was fuzzy. What are your feelings?
Oh my
You know,
gosh. Yeah.
but I think that's important actually. I think bored kids, if you can engage them in another way, that will really help.
yeah.
Because I feel like that was the difference between my brother and I, is he didn't really do extracurriculars, and I did as many as they would
You did
let
all the
me
things.
do. You know, I did ROTC, I did, I was in a group called Joe's Daughters, that was not connected to school at all. I did band, I did choir, I did musical theater, I did plays, like anything that I could find to engage me, especially creatively.
So you were
That
pretty
was
socialized, the two of you.
Yeah.
Very socialized.
Yes.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. You'd never guess.
No, never.
Yeah, and that's me too. I mean, I did some sports. I did cheerleading in junior high, but theater was always because it's storytelling, and I love storytelling. And so theater was always the thing that I went to. But like in high school, we had a psychology class that I took, which was like probably my favorite class. I mean, math was easy because I could do it. I mean, I did math without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
That was just one of the things my brain
Yeah.
works that way. But I hated doing English classes. I hated history.
conjugating verbs.
Right, which is so stupid.
I didn't
Like, why?
understand it. We were in 6th grade and I didn't understand it. I'm like, why are they making us do this? It's like how I felt when we were doing phonics. I'm like, but don't we already know this?
Right?
And that was an honors English class where we were conjugating verbs.
Well, if you were doing it in a foreign
And I
language,
was
it would
just
make
like-
sense.
Right, but I'm like, no, this is just English.
This is just my language. This is what I speak. I know wording, and I know word well.
I know word. I can word.
I know words and I can do them well.
Yeah.
And so I'm the same. I was the same way. I'm like, this is dumb. Makes no sense. And
It
the
seems
history,
so
it was like,
pointless.
why do we need to know the exact date that XYZ happened? Nobody cares. This was a bad thing. We shouldn't do it again. This was a good
Right.
thing. We should keep doing
Let's
it.
know what happened and let's know our general
Yeah.
timeline. But having kids,
Stress and stress and stress that they can list all the presidents by name in order and their terms and their vice presidents and what county they're from.
Right, which is what I had to do in my honors 9th grade history class. Which, it's like I learned so many good things. Like we learned about all the different types of governments.
Right.
That I think is huge.
Oh, yeah,
Understanding the
absolutely.
difference between
Understanding what the government is, how
Right,
it works, and how
exactly.
you can be a part of it.
right, and then learning about your own government. But
Yes.
we spent all these weeks having to do route memorization of every single president in order and what their term was. And the test was every single week, write it out.
But I think
And
that,
because we were all gifted kids, we all giftedly figured out how to make a code on our shoes or something to cheat. Because no one can memorize that much.
and I think
Because
that
who
when
needs
And
kids
it was
say,
pointless. And you know what I never learned about? Vietnam.
that's
My
exactly where
my
I was
knowledge
going
from,
on.
like,
yeah,
anywhere past the civil rights movement, we made it there. And I'm talking about, I graduated in 2007. So we're talking about, like, this is the early 2000s. This is, like, I should know things past the civil rights movement. We're talking about 40.
I should have learned about
40
the Civil War,
years
about
ago.
Vietnam, and I graduated in 88.
yeah.
Yeah, I never learned about Vietnam. I never learned about Desert Storm. I never learned about the Gulf Wars. You know, I'm just like, there are these huge gaps. But we spent more than a month learning all the presidents in order and how to spell their names and exactly what terms they had. I don't remember any of it. I don't even remember all of our presidents.
You could
I remember the important
first
ones.
one, and
Yeah, no, I know the important ones. Or like we had a friend who was talking to her kid about where did Thomas Jefferson live? What was his house called? And it's Monticello, which now I know because I love Hamilton. And Thomas Jefferson is a character in Hamilton. But I'm like, I had no idea. And also, why do we need to know that?
right.
What does that actually,
What purpose does that serve?
What purpose
other
does
than
that
to
serve?
be on Jeopardy?
Yes.
yeah, I mean, even like in the course of our history, understanding what happens when, you know, I'm like,
Well,
that
and
literally
understanding
makes
the
no
kind of
purpose.
guideline or the timeline of when things happen. So first, the Revolutionary War.
Right, that,
then
yes, but like,
yeah.
what is Thomas Jefferson's house called? It's called Monticello.
Yeah, no,
Unimportant.
I think that, and when kids talk about school isn't working for me or I'm bored, I think they are
Yeah.
talking about that kind of route memorization. They're not talking about the actual exciting learning about who we are and where we came from. So you guys,
Right.
in summation,
Since we're here.
in summation, I think the important thing is every child is different. And your child is not your badge of honor to wear. Their accomplishments are not your achievements to parade around. Find what your
Nope.
child needs and help them get there. Because that, I think, is what is most ultimately important, however you decide to do it.
Absolutely.
However works for your kiddo.
Yeah, make your kid a valuable member of society.
There you go. They are your priority.